Hi, guys. I get asked frequently, how are you losing the weight? How did you do it? And I remember struggling myself to find something that worked. I've tried programs, I tried green smoothies, I tried infused water, programs you've heard of, undoubtedly, from television commercials. I'd lose a little, but I would somehow not succeed. I'd lose some weight, I'd gain it back, I'd gain more. It led to really struggling with being depressed about it. I didn't feel stupid, but am I just not able to do this? I don't understand why I can't do it. I don't understand. I'm trying, but then I'd get tempted and go to a drive-through, or I'd be lazy, or it was hard to do the chopping and the cooking and the planning and the sorting and the measuring and it just never flowed. It never permanently worked for me. This one's working for me. If you are new, hi, and I've lost over 300 pounds in about the last year and a half on a medically supervised diet. So, I'll get into that another time. But when I get asked now, how are you doing it? At first, I thought maybe it was the program I'm on. Maybe that was it. And then I learned that people struggle on this diet just as they can on any program. It's a great program, don't get me wrong, and it ended up being a perfect fit for me. But the perfect fit for you might be something else. It began to occur to me it isn't necessarily the program. So I began to think deeper because I really wanted to be able to give a good answer to this. I figured people would ask about my weight frequently, maybe even for a few years. So, okay, I thought harder. How is this program working for me now when no other program ever did? And it occurred to me, in a way I know. In a way I know why this one's working for me now, when no other healthy program ever did. And that's because something happened to me several years ago that completely changed my perspective. And I could never again go back to how I used to think before. And it occurred to me, that's the difference. I got my brain in the game differently than it ever had been before. Any kind of self-denial, or I'll do it later, or I still have time to take it off, or just, it's okay if I cheat now, I can always go back on it later. Any kind of choices that involve not being fully conscious that the choices I was making were choices, how do I say this? Both my choices and my non-choices were affecting my life. I wasn't living consciously, choosing to learn how to put goals down, write dreams down, and aim for them and work toward them and try to accomplish them. I'd been sort of existing, just thinking I was living or not even addressing it somehow. I'm not sure. But I really think that was involved with my not succeeding before. Not really consciously focusing hard on every menu step, every measurement, every plan. My determination wasn't there. So when I'm asked this question, how are you losing the weight? Excuse me. I'm on a great program, and I'm thankful for it. But I wouldn't be succeeding if my, thinking hadn't changed. And my thinking changed because of a life-altering event. Several years ago, I had reason to seek medical attention to see about the health of the lining of my uterus. And it turned out that I was one stage away from cancer. So I had to have a complete hysterectomy. But I was overweight at the time. I was over 400 pounds at the time. And I found a surgeon who would be willing to take me on at that weight, but also said, we kind of talked about would I like to try to wait a few months just to see if I could drop some pounds just to make the surgery a little easier on me and on her, or what? And we decided just, to try that. That ultimately ended up being a mistake. I went on oral progesterone, a hormone, to try to slow the growth of any cancer developing in my uterus, while I spent a few months trying to lose some weight before surgery to remove my uterus. One day, I noticed that my right leg had swelled to something I've never seen the size of before. I've seen swelling before, and I had had edema in my ankles. I'd seen swelling before, and I was large already. But this was not normal. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I thought it looked like a tree stump attached to my body. I read the possible side effects to this medication on the little note you get from the pharmacy, and as I read the warnings, it was saying how it's, pretty safe, but then it gets to, if your hand is tingling, or if your face is tingling, or you're having shortness of breath, seek medical attention immediately. And I had just thought that day how weird it was that my hand was tingling and my cheeks were tingling, and I had been struggling to breathe for about a week. When you try to get a deep breath, you even lift your arms to try to expand your rib cage and try to fill your lungs like after running or something. I was doing that to try to get a deep breath, and I could tell I wasn't getting a deep breath. So that had been bothering me. All of these things were bothering me. I said, seek medical attention immediately. So I called and made an appointment for after the weekend. This was a Thursday or Friday, so I got a Monday appointment to see my surgeon. And I also decided to half the medication she was giving me. And that caused my leg to go down in swelling, about half of the swelling. I saw her on the Monday, and It was still swollen, but it was, like I said, it was about a half of what it had been on the Thursday or Friday. And she said she wasn't sure what was causing it or what was causing my shortness of breath. And she wanted to get me an ultrasound on my leg to see if I had a blood clot. I also asked about the breathing. It was extreme. I got up just to walk, and I would get shortness of breath from walking with my obesity, yes, but this was different. I knew it was different, but I didn't know what it was. And I looked at her as I was heaving, gasping for air, leaning against a wall, and I said to her, "Do you know what's causing this?" And she looked at me, and she's astute, she's brilliant, but she looked at me, she said, "No. I wish she'd thought of it, but, she also she said she wanted me to go and get an ultrasound on my leg to see if I had a blood clot and to get a chest CT scan because of the breathing. She wanted to know, if she could see what was going on. So I went in on the Tuesday to get the ultrasound on my leg, and they found a blood clot behind my right knee. But Thursday came, and I'd never heard about the appointment for the chest. And I called my surgeon's office, and the receptionists at medical offices are always so pleasant. "Hi, how may I help you?" And she was pleasant, and then I said to her, I went for my scan on Tuesday. Oh, now I have to backtrack a little. Because they found the blood clot on Tuesday, I went to my GP on Wednesday, and they gave me a blood thinner shot and taught me how to do it in my abdomen. And I may or may not have given myself a blood thinner shot the next morning. But this information is pivotal to the story, so I had to backtrack. So after they found the blood clot on the Tuesday, I got a blood thinner shot on the Wednesday at my doctor's office. And I think, but I'm not sure, I may have given myself a shot the Thursday. So then on the Thursday, I called the surgeon, like I said, and I said I had gotten the appointment from them for the ultrasound on Tuesday, but I'd never heard from anyone about the chest CT. And prior to calling, I had thought to myself, it's already Thursday. I'll just wait and I'll call Monday. And a part of me just thought, I'll just call them. They wanted me to get this chest scan done. And so I don't know to this day, why I called. But I called that Thursday. I think it was midday or around 1 or something in the afternoon. I'm not sure. And I said I got the ultrasound on Tuesday, but I've never heard about the chest scan. And all of a sudden, this receptionist, who's always pleasant, had a wonderful, pleasant way about her, got very concerned. And her voice completely changed and said, "You haven't? You have to have that. You have to go today." So at the time, I was of such a size that the only scan that could take my weight was the one at the hospital about 5 blocks from my house. And I said, okay, I was so tired. I was so tired. But I said, okay, so I made myself get in the car and said, I had a step-up car. You have to step up into it. And I said, okay, you just have to get up and go to this appointment. But we went to the wrong building, and we found out after we got to the building, and we called them, and it was running late, and I happened to know that I had to get to the scan by 4:30, and if I didn't, I wouldn't make it that day for the test because they close at 5 and don't take people after 4:30. And it was getting later, and we were in the wrong place. So I get up to the car to get into the car at the wrong place, and It's the one time I'm aware that I have a serious problem. Because even as large as I was, as hard it was to get in and out of cars, I stood there with the door open, leaning on the door, with my hand in the car, and I had to step up into that car, and I had the thought, you can't get in this car. And I just told myself, one more time, get in this car, one more time. I don't know if it's because I had, kind of tough immigrant parents or, suck it up or what, but I don't remember getting in the car, but I remember standing there thinking, I can't get in this car. I couldn't catch enough breath. I was tired. I was really, really tired. So, I get in the car. But it is getting later. It's about 4:05, and we're driving to the hospital. And connected to the hospital is another building, and it says cancer. And I'm thinking, well, I'm potentially fighting this cancer. Am I supposed to go to the cancer place? I was confused. So I have my husband drop me off at the cancer place, and it's the wrong place. Now, I usually deal with great people at reception, and maybe this lady was having a bad day or just annoyed by me. I'm not sure. But she informed me it was the wrong place and was just going to go back to doing what she was doing, and I said, I can't get back in my car. I need someone to go. She said it's, I needed to go to the hospital. It's, right down the cement pathway. It was sort of connected, but it was a good 100 or more yards. And I said, I can't do it. I'm going to have to sit in your lobby and wait. You're going to have to, I said, would you please? I didn't say you're going to have to. I said, would you please call the hospital and ask them to send someone over with a large wheelchair for a bigger sized person, because I can't go anywhere. I need to just sit in a chair in your lobby and wait for them. I can't do it. I can't get in the car again, and I can't walk it. And she was really annoyed. Bless her. She did not want to do it. I said, I can't do it. I need your help. Could you please help me? And I just sat down in her lobby. I just sat right there. Just sat down. And I was trying, to breathe. And it took so long for them to get there that I made myself get up and go to the register area again. And I said, have you called? She'd called, thank you. And I sat back down, and eventually, but it did take a while, a very nice gentleman came pushing a wheelchair. He'd taken a while. It was after 4:30 by now, and I knew I wasn't going to get in. And I said, so as he was pushing me, I said, it's too late. He said, let's just give it a try. And then, he had to push me all the way through the hospital because it was at the very other side of the hospital and at the bottom. And I'm so glad I didn't try and walk that. And I get there and I say to them at their registration, I know you don't take people after 4:30. It was 10 to 5. I said, I know you don't take people after 4:30. I'm so sorry I'm late. Is there any way? And no problem. We're waiting for someone to come after you, so it's not a problem. We can fit you in right now. It was just the first nice sort of blessing of a breeze through, okay. And I go in and I have the chest CT. You lay down on a big machine and it comes up over you and it goes back down. And I get up and I go home. And I just have to get in this car one more time. And we go home. And before we reach our driveway, which was 5 blocks away, and they're small little neighborhood blocks, if you go out my street and make a left and look up, you see the top of the hospital. So it's really close. By the time we got home, I had a phone message on my phone. My husband had a phone message on his phone. Mine said, "The doctor has looked at your scan and you need to come to the hospital right now." And my husband said, "She needs to get back to the hospital right now." And we're in the car, in the driveway. And I look at him and I say, "If I go in there tonight, I'm going to be there a while. I probably won't come home before morning, so we should probably get some things for me." So we just grabbed some things, like a toothbrush and some medicine and stuff. And I made myself get back in that car. One more. And they had said, you know, "You need to come back to the hospital right now. Someone will meet you at the ER." Which I knew meant, you know, I've been to enough hospitals in life to know that they don't do that. So they don't. So I got back in the car, we headed to the hospital, I get out of the car, I'm walking toward the ER, and a lady walks up to me and says, "Susan?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "Come and sit right here." And she sits me down on a stone wall at the portico entrance of the ER and says, "Just wait there for me." And she goes and gets a large size wheelchair. Didn't happen to make, you know, the mistake of having the smaller one there, so I don't know how, if they were just prepared for that or what, but she brings this wheelchair up to me, says, you know, to please get in the wheelchair, and she pushes me by the ER patient waiting room. I don't go in, I don't register. She blows by the place outside the building. She doesn't even take me in to where you go in to register when you go to the ER with a broken wrist or something and you wait your turn for a few hours, which is what I thought I would do, but she didn't even go in. She just rode me right by it and pushed me into an ER cubicle. And immediately there were doctors, nurses hovering. And I found out later I had the head of the ER department and the head of the cardiopulmonary department. I would later have the boss of them as well as them. I had a couple nurses, and I'm looking around. All I'm feeling is very tired and that I can't catch my breath, and I know I've got this clot, but I'm not feeling like, you know. But I'm my mother's daughter who's pretty good in a crisis, and I'm watching and I'm realizing this isn't normal. It's not normal to be rushed by the ER waiting room. It's not normal to have heads of departments in your emergency room cubicle. And another thing wasn't normal, and that was, you know, doctors, if you think about it, doctors come into your room, whatever doctor, GP or a specialist, or even in the hospital. I've been there before, you know, different reasons, but they always have that confident air. Not fake confidence, but competent. You know, they know what they're doing. They've, you know, heard stories before, you know, so they have that doctor thing. The only thing that told me how bad this may be, besides that I had heads of departments in my little ER cubicle, was these two doctors' faces. Instead of that calm doctor thing, you know, the reassuring, "How you doing today? Yeah, I'm Dr. So-and-so." They both had these tension brackets here. It was different than the normal doctor look. And they were kind of white with tension. But they weren't saying anything to me, granted. But they had this tension going on. So that was more disturbing than most things. I hadn't realized how much I take for granted doctors usually come and say, "Hello, I'm Dr. So-and-so, let's work on this problem, or here's what we'll do." But they were stressed, these doctors, and weren't saying anything. Okay, so I'm paying attention. Something's really wrong with me. And I don't know what it is, but they're very concerned. Something's really wrong with me. ultimately, the head honcho of them came in. I don't know what his job was. I don't know how high up he was. He came in and he said, "You've had a massive pulmonary embolism." He said, "Have you ever heard of blood clots, traveling to people's lungs?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, it can be very dangerous. A blood clot going to someone's lungs can go to your heart and cause a heart attack. It can go to your head and cause a stroke. It can be deadly." And I said, I'd heard that. And he said, "Both of your lungs are completely full of blood clots, except for the space of like one more clot. And that space is what you're breathing on right now." And remember, I had a blood clot behind my right knee. So there was one in the works. Trying to maintain my concentration to tell the story right. Heard my dog's chain jingle in the background. I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" And they gave me an echocardiogram. And this doctor, the cardiologist, his is the first face that relaxed. He saw my heart and he immediately went to confident doctor face, relaxed confident doctor face. First doctor that did that. He said, "That's a good heart, I can work with that." And I said, "What do you see?" And he said, "Well, the right side of your heart is enlarged, but I expected that with a pulmonary embolism." He said, "You have a small leak and you have a murmur, but it's a good heart, I can work with that." And his face was fine from then on. So he was happy with whatever he saw regarding my heart. And so I felt a little better, even hearing all of that stuff going on with it, because he seemed to be fine with it, and of course he would know what he was doing. Back to head honcho guy again. He said, I said, "What do we do?" And he said, "Well, you have two options. I could give you a clot buster drug, and it would do the job. But it can cause abdominal bleeding, it can cause a brain bleed, it can cause internal bleeding, it can literally cause you to bleed to death. Now, I need to make sure you understand, even though it sounds like too much information, I'm having issues with my uterus. That's why I need to have it taken out. So I am having extensive vaginal bleeding at this point. And because I have this secondary problem, the possibility of bleeding out was more likely, apparently." And I said, "What's the other option?" He said, "Well, I could give you a blood thinner. And we could hope that the clots in your lungs reabsorb through the lining of your lungs and back into your bloodstream." And I said, "What happens if they don't? Or it doesn't work in time?" And he said, "Well, that other clot will move up into your lungs and your heart will stop and you will die." I was waiting for that other option. In my life, I've said I've been to hospitals before. I'd broken a wrist, I'd had some other issues. So I was waiting for one of them to sound like, "Well, we have to do a surgery or a procedure or give you a cast or send you to therapy or something, but in 6 months you'll be fine." Or I was waiting for the something you'll be fine comment. And I realized he'd said he was I had two options, and he'd given me two. I'd never been faced with reality before that I have a decision to make, and either one could kill me. Oh, and I have to make it right now. Which would you choose? Oh, and give yourself about 5 minutes and choose. If you feel like it, tell me in the comments below which one you would have chosen. But don't give yourself all night or something to think it over. Choose now.